that goes into like when kind of like when we talk about D&D random encounters, and it's like, yeah, random encounters are okay, I guess, some of the time, but they don't feel connected.
Right. There's some neat games coming out in the near future, but one big one just released that everyone's been talking about.
Baldur's Gate.
Well, yeah, Baldur's Gate 3, which is definitely going to be up for some stuff. But no, it's Starfield. It's Bethesda. Yeah. Bethesda Game Studios themselves came out with another epic RPG. They've been
Their
working
first new IP in 25 years?
Something like that. And they've been working on this. They've been working on this for like probably the better part of a decade now. Since they originally had a confirmation. And it's been like several years since all we had was basically the opening screenshot of the little Starfield logo coming across. So it's been a process. You've been playing the Baldur's Gate 3, so I'm sure you're having a good time with that. Yeah. I am, however, playing the Starfield. And so I did want to talk a little bit about that. Fiddleback. You remember Fiddleback, right?
I do.
Fiddleback had put something out on whatever Twitter is called now, and had just said, like, has anyone been playing Starfield? And this was, like, the second day that it was out. And I responded back, yeah, I downloaded it last night. I've been tooling around with it a little bit. And so he asked me the question, does it feel like a smaller and more curated version of No Man's Sky? And I said, well, smaller, when you're trying to compare it to No Man's Sky, is almost like a guarantee, because it's No Man's Sky. Trying to create something as large as that is just like, that's basically every game.
Procedural generation, and then it doesn't feel like tailored.
Right.
Yeah.
Curated, it definitely does, because it does have, like, more RPG elements. But the thing I basically said is, to kind of conceptualize it for everybody, is that it's not really a space game. It's really an RPG that is set in space.
Right.
Space is your backdrop. It's an RPG. It's much fairer to compare it to other epic RPGs, big open world ones like a Fallout or a Skyrim, or even a Cyberpunk
other
or a
Bethesda
Witcher
games,
or like even a Skyrim. Like a Witcher or a Cyberpunk or any of those. Okay. It's probably fairer to compare it to all of those, and so I try to look at it in that way, with space being, the backdrop. And so I thought that I would actually talk to you a little bit about the more unique aspects to it that are different than what you would experience in space games.
Sure.
Because that might be a little bit helpful for you. So the first thing that I wanted to explain is, despite what some people might be aware, it's not really an open world space in the game. You have systems that you can jump to, and you can jump to individual, planets, but it's not just one giant connected piece of space that you can go from. There's smaller hub areas.
Yeah, you've got to basically fast travel everywhere, is what I heard.
You do. You fast travel everywhere from one place to another. You also don't actually have entire planets to explore. What you do is you pick a landing spot on that planet, and it basically creates a place in that biome on the planet. Like, it seeds... it procedurally generates a seed of that area to explore. I did not mind this. I have not minded this, mostly because asking to explore 1,000 planets is not something I'm going to do anyway. So you might as well you might as well just
explore several.
Right. I'm going to explore several of them, and so what it does, which I think is kind of interesting, is that it will allow you to survey a planet. It will show you some of the research sources, and you can upgrade your scanner so you can see better resources. And then it will say, where do you want to set down based on the resources that are there and the biomes that are there. It will tell you what the different biomes are, and then you can set down wherever, and it will basically ping a landing spot on that planet when you go. When you get down there, there are some randomly generated things that are there. You can look over the horizon and see that there are natural landmarks, there are bases and ship graveyards and different bio entities that are there. And you can go about scanning or collecting resources or doing whatever you want in that area. And eventually
doing your No Man's Sky stuff.
Yeah, and eventually doing base building. You can create bases wherever you want, as long as it's not an
It's like No Man's Sky.
Like similar to No Man's Sky. Yeah. There's definitely a lot more combat than in No Man's Sky, I'll tell you that. And I do feel like it is definitely edging on the RPG elements. Because you do have a lot of talking and a lot of groups, a lot of agencies, essentially, that you can join that have storylines all of their own. I have not gotten far enough in any of those stories to talk about them specifically. I have, however, heard that a lot of the side content is better than the main story, which is not surprising for a Bethesda RPG, to be honest with you, because that is very typical. I can tell you a lot about different side quests in Elder Scrolls or Fallout games that I liked a lot more than the main missions. Fallout 3 and Skyrim are great examples of that, where the main mission is okay, but it's where you get into the weeds and get drunk with Sam Gwyn or whatever, and have to track down what happened last night. That's where the fun starts.
What happened to the goat?
Yeah, what happened to the guy? Yeah, no, it's all the side content. And luckily, they do actually have both kind of generated content, Radiant quest lines, and then they also have the curated stuff.
Of course.
So
they learned from Fallout 4.
They learned from Fallout 4, and there are a lot of similarities to it, although I see that they have pulled from a lot of their previous properties. There are some things that it does that feels a little bit more like Fallout 3, even in the score, like the soundtrack. Some of the beats, like when I hear the music, remind me of Fallout 3. The way that they do conversation trees is not just like the choosing the sarcastic kind of things that they did in 4. They actually do have scheduled responses. You are a voiceless protagonist in this one, similar to 3 or Skyrim. Yes, and it works. I don't like it when they have
my player's or character's voice.
Yeah,
spoken.
I don't know if they learned some lessons from 4. You still have different characters that you can take with them that with you that like or dislike things that you do, and it will affect their relationship. But there does seem to be a concerted effort to take some stuff from different games that they've made in the past and try to influence how this game works now. One of the things, though, that I really did like, that I thought was very different from every other Bethesda game, was how they handle upgrades and tech trees.
Oh.
And so I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I wanted to talk about that.
Not really.
So in this game, when you level up, you get a skill point. Okay. Your skill point can be put into one of 5 different tech trees, and as you put in like 4, you unlock the next level of tech tree, and then the next and the next 4 levels.
Yeah.
Each one of these skills that you get, and you start to realize many of them are very useful. Each one of these has 4 levels you can invest in. So that's cool. But it's not just a matter of saying, I invest a point in it, and then I can invest another and another and another. What they do is they create a challenge after you invest a point, and you have to complete that challenge to unlock the next level of that skill. So, I'll give you an example. Security is a skill. That's basically your lockpicking skill.
Yeah.
Out of the gate, you can do novice locks. Not a problem. You invest a point into security, and now you can unlock advanced locks. Terrific. In order to do the next level, the next tier of that skill, I first have to complete the challenge of unlocking 5 locks. I have to unlock 5 locks, and then I will be able to upgrade to the next level if I get a skill point and I want to invest it. And then if I do that, I have to do 10 locks, essentially, before I can invest in the third skill. This is sort of like a combination of what they did with the Fallout skills, like the Fallout 4 block, but with some of the doing equals advancement of the Elder Scrolls series.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a pretty happy medium, because I always were, like, as soon as I got a skill point, I was ready to invest it in 3 different things and had to determine what I was going to invest them in, because I wanted to start getting the challenge going, so that I could make sure that I was actually doing things and still getting credit for them, now that I've unlocked a new skill. That's the one really innovative thing that I think it does. The one really
I don't think that's necessarily bad. It might be just kind of annoying later on when it's like, all right, make sure you go do 30 of these things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I always found that I was waiting to get skill points to invest in things, so the challenges aren't particularly prohibitive.
Well, that's good, at least.
Yeah, and to the point where right now in the game, there's about 5 different skills that I actually want to rank up, and a few more that I want to actually get. And I've completed the challenges for all of them. So the second I get a skill point, I can invest in any. So even if you do hit a roadblock where you're like, man, I gotta do like 30 upgrades in order to, get the next tier of upgrades for my spacesuit or my weapons, it's fine, because the second you get a skill point, there's other skills that you definitely want to invest in. That are going to be useful to collect more resources out in the field, or haggle better, or scavenge better, or whatever. And then as you invest those, you get better skills down the road. So I think that that's really interesting. But I will say that the big problem that I think it has, if I were to give you the one main problem with Starfield, is, when you're going into a Bethesda RPG, those big... Yeah, you do. You have this set world that's down there, and it feels very much like it was built by somebody, the entirety of it. And you can explore that map, and you always kind of know that map, and all the places that are on it, and they all feel very unique and genuine.
Does everything feel very cookie cutter?
The thing about Starfield is that they have the places that are made. Like, they are specifically built. There are towns, there are cities, there are outposts, space stations that were built, right? And they have specific characters and places that are there. And in those sections, you can feel like it is indeed, a Bethesda RPG like you understand. The rest of it, where it's procedurally generated, feels like they did the scripting, and then it just jumped out of there, but it does not feel anywhere near as unique in the places that you go. I'll give you an example. There's a lot of, like, the underground mines in the game, and you'll see them when you go landing on a certain spot and checking out the landscape. I've been to 3. I want to say I've been to about 3 of these mines, and the layout is basically the same for all of them, to the point where I just did one. And immediately when I went down the ramp, I was like, oh, you know what? I bet that there's a computer console right there in front of me that I can use to activate a robot and change its IR settings so that it attacks people. And lo and behold, right where I thought it was, I could go there, I could turn the robot on and send him out after my enemies. Because it's the same layout. A lot of these are just the same layout over and over again. You'll see neat things that are in there, but it's mostly the same stuff from one layout to another. I feel like they should have done scripting for the,
I feel like what they could have just done with that is have a tile set and just been like, randomize it.
Yeah, no, they probably could. It's, I mean, I'm not saying that it's not interesting, because, like, some of the places that I've gone to are like, this is really neat as just, like, random outposts. I went to one where it was, like, on this frozen moon, and I jumped down into this pit, and there's these little xenogrubs, as they're called. They're just, like, around all these frozen corpses. And you go down this hallway, and you find that there's, like, pirates are raiding this abandoned science lab that has gone terribly wrong. And it's like, it was cool that I found that place. It wasn't marked on a map, really. I was there to see a ship graveyard, but now it's on the horizon, and so we go and explore a little bit, but it doesn't really feel like it was there specifically in the universe. It was generated for that spot that I just randomly sat down at.
That goes into like when kind of like when we talk about D&D random encounters, and it's like, yeah, random encounters are okay, I guess, some of the time, but they don't feel connected.
Right. I just felt like those parts are weaker elements to the part where you're actually doing the RPG thing. And I think that what they wanted to do, I imagine that there were conversations at Bethesda where they were like, well, we want to do an epic RPG like we do, but we want to make it a space game, and there's an expectation in space games that there's thousands of planets. Well, we can't obviously curate 1,000 planets. That's just insane. Full planets that we explore. So what we got to do instead is we got to create our curated content where we actually build specific places, and then we're going to create like 990 other planets. And those are all going to be random, and we'll script all of those random elements. I'd rather they didn't do that.
This is why whenever we've talked about space games before, this is why I always go back to, it's a matter of they overscale it. If you scale back to a solar system size, you could have 100 different bodies to explore if you really wanted. Look at Jupiter out here. It's got 50 freaking moons. However many it's got, 70, 80 moons.
The cool thing is, too, I will say, is that you actually can go to the local system in this game, and you can go to what is left of Earth. You can go to Mars and the moons of Jupiter and all of that. Great stuff. I guess they actually used NASA imagery for a lot of that, too.
I mean, that's free to use anyway, so why not?
But I can really see a bonus. If it were me and I was developing it myself, I would have just committed to the idea that we're not going to be No Man's Sky. We're not going to be Elite Dangerous. We're not going to explore 1 billion solar systems. It's just not going to happen. It doesn't make sense. Let's do 10. Let's do 10 solar systems. Because the storyline is essentially about how they have settled systems. There are certain systems here that have been settled, and there's not a lot of drive anymore to explore beyond that. But then now you're uncovering these ancient artifacts, and there's this idea that there maybe we should be. Maybe there's something beyond the stars that we don't know about yet that isn't in the settled systems. So do it so that you have like 3 or 4 settled systems, and then turns out that there's like 6 other systems that are beyond the pale. Focus it back in. I'm hoping one of the worlds you come across is just Skyrim. That'd be great. They created 1,000 planets, or like however many solar systems. Maybe it was 1,000. Anyway, they created all of that. It would be great if they did like just straight up, there's a planet where like it's just all the creatures from Skyrim are there. Oh, it's just Whiterun, Skyrim, all this stuff. That's similar to Elite Dangerous on the other side of things, where yes, a lot of that universe or a lot of that galaxy is procedural, but allegedly there is a planet from lore that exists somewhere in one of the many star systems in the game. They go, we're not going to tell you where it is. It's a big secret. It's a big old secret. No one knows if it's real or just a rumor that they do to hype people up. But it's from the original Elite Dangerous. It's like a gateway to something or whatever. I don't even remember the lore of it. But like, it's this planet called Raxla. It's a big mystery. It's like, it exists out there. It really does. The devs are they say it all the time. They exist. But no one has found it. Yeah. Obviously, they have explored like not but 1% of that system, galaxy. Yeah. So it's like they might never find it. Great, that's cool. Yeah. Yeah. So there's that. Hey, it sounds really cool. Hopefully you can get to it. I just feel like the way that they had to implement it for all of those other systems, they wanted to make it feel big. I understand that. They wanted to make it feel like it was incredibly lived in. And if you were to try and just discover everything on every single one of those planets, it would take you forever to do. I don't even know how many countless tens of thousands of hours it would take to do that. But because of the way they had to implement it, it doesn't really feel big like a space game. So I would have just said, just abandon that idea entirely and focus it back in. Because here's the other thing that kind of gets annoying for you. Let's say you go to one of those space stations and you like the space station, right? And you wanted to go back there, not on a mission, but because there are vendors that you like to visit there and you know that there's a space station. Well, as you unlock more of these places, you just jump to them. On the main map, those dots for each one of those systems goes from red to white. So I know that the white dots are ones I've visited, but as I keep exploring more and more of them, it gets harder and harder to tell what systems I want to go to and the places that I want to visit. Because each one of those systems is like a dungeon unto themselves that have a bunch of sub-dungeons. So now I have to remember, oh no, where is the den? Because I know I can unload like a contraband and stuff at the traders at the den, but I only had to visit that for like one mission. I don't have any other missions to the den that I can use as a marker. Where is it?
So it sounds like what they need is, again, similar to what Elite Dangerous has, is a bookmarking system.
Yep. That'd be very handy.
Because they have that in Elite where you can just bookmark systems, write a note on it, bookmark it, and then you can go into your map, you can look at your bookmark, select it, and then be like, plot a course to this system.
Sure.
Because in Elite you have to fly to it, you don't just fast travel, so.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of UI stuff that they have to improve. They have to do something about the shipbuilding, because I can duplicate items, but I can't seemingly buy new items to put onto the ships.
Oh, okay.
So I'm a little, like, I can upgrade certain aspects, but I can't, like, say, oh, I found, like, this cool part for a ship. Can I load on a new part? I don't have, like, a choose new part thing to put onto the
it sounds
ship that I know
broken
of.
right now.
That I know of. Maybe I have to get a skill or something in shipbuilding to
I
make
saw
it happen,
that somebody has apparently given plans out on Steam on how to make the Ebon Hawk.
Perfect.
So,
I'd love to do that.
If you're familiar with that ship in Star Wars, so.
Am I familiar with the Ebon Hawk? Yes.
Yeah, if you're familiar with the ship in Star Wars, I said.
The Knights of the Old Republic. Yeah, no, I'm familiar with that game.
Yeah. Someone on Steam I looked at, I was like, oh, someone's built the Ebon Hawk already.
Yeah, perfect. Nice. Excellent. I mean, it has its charms, and it definitely does have some rough stuff around the edges. I will tell you, though, that one problem that this has that is very similar to every other Bethesda RPG that I have encountered, and I have encountered it quite frequently, are weight limits. And
I use mods for that.
Yeah, I know. The thing that's weird about it is that it's like, it's annoying, but it's not crippling the way they install it. There's a function in this game that's an O2 meter. You basically have an oxygen meter. If
one of the guys at work is playing and told me about this.
Yeah.
So go on.
If you exert yourself or run or anything like that, it depletes your oxygen meter and it would have to refill. You could deplete it all the way, you end up getting CO2. And if your CO2 goes all the way up, you start to lose health. And then you have to replenish it. Interesting system, not gonna lie. Interesting. But
doesn't sound good to me, though. But
when you have encumbrance, even walking will start to deplete that O2 meter.
Jeez.
And running will deplete it really fast. And the more encumbrance that you have, the faster this goes. Now, I've upgraded all of my weight like all of my weight expansions. It wasn't very hard to do. Because I think the challenges are like, run for so many yards when you're at 75% of your weight limit or whatever. It's like, that's not gonna be hard to do. But at any rate, now I can carry like 250 for mass. It does not take very long, even with my general equipment, to have at least 100. And so once you're collecting resources, which of course you're going to, because you have to pick up everything in the game.
This is why I said I use mods, because when I was playing Fallout 4, especially because of that crafting system, I'd go through like Corvega
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm gonna pick up everything I can use for like
Then you
scrap.
can't do anything
and then
after you get out of
and
it.
then you get encumbered. You can't fast travel, or
Yeah.
you can't walk at all. You can't do anything. So I would end up fast travel, deposit all my stuff, come back, and finish clearing out. I prefer the convenience of not having to make that trip
Yeah.
500 times.
Right.
You know, I'm playing for fun. This is taking me out of having the fun. I'm installing a mod that makes it so that this is not an issue I have to deal with.
Right. You know, I think it's interesting because recently, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but I played a few different titles from Piranha Bytes, who's a pretty well-known, very well-respected German developer, and they're kind of well-known for making very somewhat difficult games. Like, they made the original Gothic series, which is famous for basically saying, you are but meat to the fodder, and you will be happy if you live through a rat encounter. Basically, that was Gothic. And then they made the Risen series, and they made Elix. And the thing that I found really refreshing about all of their games, there is no encumbrance or weight requirements. You pick up everything you want. There is never a point where you are going to be slowed down or mitigated at all based on how much stuff is in your inventory.
Yeah.
Best thing they ever implemented because it keeps you engaged.
Exactly.
Yeah. But this does have that problem, and it gets worse, I will tell you, because your spaceship also has weight limits.
Oh, jeez.
So I go back to my ship, like the Frontier, which is the first one you start out at, and I say, oh yeah, put all the resources into there. And it's like, oh, your ship is full now, and I still have, like, most of the resources that are taking up 100, 200 mass in my thing. It's very quick. I have, however, just run across, because I went to a space station, and it was just docked there, so I thought, screw it, I'll get it. A giant UC cargo hauler.
There you go.
It's not good for combat. I have no missiles on it. It's probably not even good for a hull, but it has like over 2,000 mass for cargo capacity. So I'm using that now, and I'm a little annoyed because I had just worked on getting my the Mantis. There's a side note. There's a quest line in the game that you get very early on where it's like this secret facility that you can visit, and it's like, ooh, there's a cool treasure trove of cool stuff, and you can go there and you do that mission, and it turns out that there's basically the Starfield equivalent of the Batman basically lived there.
Okay.
The Mantis or whatever, and had set up all these traps for getting down there. And if you get through the traps and you get through the raiders that are trying to get there, you get to what is essentially the Bat Cave. And in that, you literally do get some legendary gear that is the suit that the Mantis would have worn. And you get the Razor Leaf, the Mantis's ship. That is far better than the ship that you started out with. Cool, but it still didn't have very good cargo capacity. So in order to haul stuff around the freaking universe here, I can't really use my Mantis as my home ship.
Yeah. Do you get to keep more than one ship?
Yep, you can have multiple ships.
Okay, well that's good. The other question I had seen kind of a little bit about it, saying that the space stuff wasn't that great in the spaceship, like the combat, for instance, wasn't...
Yeah, it's not as fleshed. I think if anyone was hoping to have like a real spacey adventure, they are going to be sadly disappointed with it, because the space, again, is really just there to get you to the planets mostly, and to do some dogfighting and to interact with some of the other ships. It's basically the on-ground experience, but in space. And there's some neat stuff there. You know, you can deal with raiders and all of that, and you can even like blow up asteroids for resources and stuff. There's some neat stuff where you can communicate with the other cargo haulers and stuff and trade with them, and maybe they need help or assistance. I did have one interesting encounter where it was a luxury tour that was out there in space, and they hailed me, or I hailed them, and the tourists that were on there had questions about what it's like being a spaceship captain, and you could answer the questions for the tourists who were so happy.
Why don't they just ask the person that's piloting the luxury
they're just
cruise?
they're just tour guides, apparently. They're hanging out.
There's no captain?
No,
there's no captain.
There's no captain. And then if you can answer those questions, like the tour guide is so nice, it gives you credits and stuff. And these are again kind of like random things that you might pop up when you're going across them. But it's very limited. There's not a ton of things to do in space, and you're probably going to think to yourself that you didn't have a real reason to spend a lot of time trying to, make your ships and your ship combat any easier. That it's probably not a focal point. It didn't feel like a focal point for the game.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's not a perfect game for any, by any stretch of the imagination, but
it almost sounds to me like, again, if we're using other space games as a metric, it sounds to me like the reverse of Elite Dangerous.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Elite has really good ship-based everything. It's the flights. It's because everything was made on a game that's designed just for the spaceships.
Sure.
And so the combat's fine. The advanced combat is insane. The flying the ship is fine. All the controls for the ship are good. Everything in that is based for the ship. But then they added the on foot section, which is a lot clunkier. It's not as fleshed out. I mean, they do their best, but it's like the systems are not as good or as fleshed out or as fluid. So I feel like it's almost like it's just the opposite, where they went, we're going to make a great Bethesda RPG, but give you a spaceship.
Yeah.
But it's not designed for the spaceship. It's designed for you being on foot.
Right.
And Elite goes, we're going to give you a great spaceship simulator.
Right.
And also, here's now an on foot and a ground vehicle you can use and do stuff on foot missions with. But really, it's focused on the spaceship. So
Right. It's interesting because I was sitting there, and since somebody like Fiddleback had referred to it as like comparing it to No Man's Sky. In No Man's Sky, I can't really edit or modify my vehicles, but what I can do is fly them around. So there's a trade-off there. I feel like if there was this game,
even in Elite, you can't edit your vehicles as much as like you can build your ship in Starfield, but you can select your paint jobs, you can customize, you can get ship kits to like add aesthetic stuff to the ships, which you have to buy with real money, but the point is they're there.
Yeah.
You can do
they
ship
do that in
skins, you can
Starfield,
paint them,
just so you know.
and then you can do you can change out your entire ship's loadout, like in like the internals and the weapons and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But you can't really change their appearance as much, but there are tons of skins. And then No Man's Sky is really just kind of you can change your ship's trails.
Sure.
For the jets on
yeah,
the end,
yeah.
which
You
if
can do
you're
a little
flying around
modification.
in a little bit, and then everything else is just internal and you don't see it.
Exactly. And
So
they do some. I mean, the thing is that like what you can do with your ship builder in Starfield is very interesting because you can literally put new modules and stuff in it, and you can add weaponry and all of that.
Which honestly is something I'd be interested in Starfield.
Oh, sure.
Because I like that concept, but...
Right. And, I mean, the other cool thing, I will say, that I really did like is the idea of being able to actually go onto ships and walk around in them.
Yes.
Which is something that you don't normally see. I can go and walk around my own ship, but then also, if I board other ships, I get to walk around those other ships as if they are environments. Very cool. Like that a lot.
That is something we have been waiting for in Elite Dangerous still.
They have it in Starfield, so there's that. But then it's kind of underutilized when you get it into actual space and have to utilize it. So I guess just to kind of like wrap up my general thoughts on it, having played for 20-30 hours now, it's not by any stretch of the imagination a perfect game. I think that it's a bad idea to refer to it as a space game anyway, but really an RPG that uses space, more in the vein of maybe like a Mass Effect, honestly, in that terms.
Okay.
But like trying to be a little bit larger and more of an epic open world RPG instead. So, oh god, does that mean it's like Andromeda? Oh god. Anyway, kinda is. That's scary. But at any rate, I still see this as the kind of game that, let's face it, people are going to be playing this for 10 years. It's going to be like at every other one of these that has come along. It's going to be like Fallout 3. It's going to be like Skyrim. People are going to be playing this for a decade. They're going to be constantly modifying it. And
I was going to say, and considering the modding community behind Bethesda's other games, you give it not even a year and there's going to be 20,000 mods for it.
It's not going to take long.
Fix bugs, change things, make space have combat.
Yeah.
Whatever Bethesda didn't intend for the game will now be in the game. It's going to be a sex simulator at its heart.
Yep, absolutely. It's going to be Space Sex Simulator 2023. Hope everybody enjoyed. 2024, it's probably going to come out. Don't worry, folks. Yeah. It's inevitable. I mean, so on the one hand, is it perfect? No. I will give you, though, the one positive. It is surprisingly stable for a Bethesda game at the start.
Hopefully they've had years to figure that out.
Yeah, but literally just because I know that it's always a trope that when you get a Bethesda RPG, expect that the bugs and the glitches are a feature, not a bug. But I will tell you that having played a lot of them, I have experienced very few bugs and glitches. I think the one that I found the most annoying was when I landed on the space station and the exit door that I'm supposed to leave the space station from did not actually have a hard point to actually access when I went back to it.
Oh, good.
So I couldn't leave the space station and I had to go back to an older save so that I could, I had to do the activities in that station again, but it spawned so I could actually leave at that point. But that was the worst thing that actually happened in the game.
That's not bad then.
No. So overall, yeah, I think that it's pretty good. It's a lot of fun. It's the kind of thing that you expect. If you're going into this just saying I want a Bethesda RPG like the other RPGs you had and you had fun with those, good news. This is another one.
Good.
This is another one. Yeah. So I think you're going to enjoy it for that. If you're looking for this to be a richer RPG-ish experience with more customization elements of a No Man's Sky, and you're looking for it from the aspect of having a big exploration-based action game like a No Man's Sky, it's probably not going to do that for you, because it's a different kind of game. So, just be aware of that. You go in with the expectations of it being a Bethesda RPG, like other RPGs you've played. If you like those, you're gonna like this. If you think that this is going to be the next No Man's Sky, it doesn't do the same things. It doesn't.
Starfield, a Bethesda game.
Starfield. It's a Bethesda game, but in space. That's what it is. Hey, you gotta love it. You gotta love it. So yeah, I think that it's fine, but I'm kind of interested in how everybody else feels. If you've been playing Starfield and you have any thoughts on it, please let us know in the comments down below. I guess if you're wondering how I feel about the whole reactionary dialogue around it, there's going to be a Patreon video where I talk about that, so feel free to sign up over there.
Yes, for $1 a month, hit up our Patreon, you can see what Nathan really feels.
Yeah, you can see how I feel about that whole dialogue, because, you know what, I'm not going to go into it now. I don't want to do it.
We spent too much time on this as is. Let's get into the next one.
Okay, excellent.